I still remember that evening with a strange clarity, not because anything dramatic was supposed to happen, but because it began so normally. The house was quiet as usual. I was in the living room when Nora called out my name from the hallway. Her voice carried urgency. I asked what was wrong. She responded from the bathroom, embarrassed. She had forgotten her clothes and asked me to grab them from her room. This was routine for her. I didn't think twice before heading upstairs, picking out what she needed and returning to the door. But when the door opened a little wider than I anticipated, there was a brief moment that caught me off guard. I immediately looked away and handed over the clothes without hesitation. That fleeting second stayed with me. It wasn't something I wanted to think about, and yet it lingered, disrupting my sense of normalcy. From that point on, I started to notice a subtle shift in myself, something internal I didn't fully understand. Nora was still the same person, confident, relaxed, moving through the house with ease, talking to me. But my reactions to everyday moments began to change. I became more aware of things, and that made me uncomfortable. Not because she was doing anything different, but because I couldn't stop my thoughts from drifting into places they didn't belong. I tried to brush it off as a passing phase, something that would fade if I ignored it long enough. But the more I tried to suppress it, the more persistent it became, especially during quiet moments. I found myself questioning why I felt this way. Nothing about our relationship had changed. She was still my sister. That truth made everything more confusing. The problem wasn't external, it was internal, something I had to confront. As days passed, that tension followed me into ordinary interactions, like watching television together. Moments that used to feel effortless now carried an undercurrent of unease that I couldn't explain. I kept my behavior as normal as possible, talking and joking, but behind that was a constant effort to remind myself of what mattered and where the boundaries were, knowing unchecked thoughts could lead to consequences. One afternoon, after trying to distract myself, Nora called out again, asking me to pick up groceries. I agreed, hoping stepping outside would clear my mind. But when I saw her, that internal conflict rose again. Not because of anything she did, but because my mind was already unsettled. I struggled to maintain composure. When she suddenly laughed, it caught me off guard. I didn't understand what triggered it. Her reaction made me more aware of myself, more uncertain, until I realized later what had happened. It added another layer of awkwardness to something I was already struggling to process. I became more cautious, trying to avoid situations where I might feel exposed or uncertain, but avoidance only made things more noticeable. Every interaction carried the weight of everything I wasn't saying. That night, she came to my room, asking for help with her phone. Everything felt normal on the surface, yet completely different underneath. I focused on fixing the issue, keeping the conversation practical, but couldn't ignore the tension in my mind. When she asked a simple question, I felt caught off guard, realizing how fragile my sense of control had become. I understood the real issue wasn't a single incident, but how easily the mind loses balance without boundaries. That realization forced me to step back, mentally and emotionally, to prevent it from growing complicated. Later that night, I made a difficult but necessary decision. Distance isn't about running away. It's about creating space to regain clarity, reset perspective, and protect relationships that matter. The next morning, I told my parents I wanted to move out, framing it as a step toward independence. It was my way of taking responsibility for my thoughts, ensuring I didn't damage something permanent. They were surprised but trusted my decision. As I prepared to leave, I felt relief and uncertainty, knowing I was choosing the harder path now to avoid a far worse outcome later. Emotions don't have to control you. Awareness and discipline define your choices. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is recognize when you need to step back to protect what's worth protecting.